I'm Coach Dave. Welcome back to Coach's Corner.
Come on.
Well, welcome back, everyone. Coach Dave McDonough here with Coach's Corner podcast. Today we have, many people. Let me start like this again. Many people come to us, not only fighters, but the boxing world is filled with so many different people that are doing great things out there. And I think maybe that's my lure to boxing is, you get to meet so many people who are not only fighters or trainers or coaches, promoters, but many people who, have a love for the game of boxing. And I have Charlie Wood here today. He is the owner of Brown's Sporting Good Cards. Boxing Cards. Brown's Boxing Cards. And welcome to Coach's Corner, Charlie. I appreciate it. We had met briefly at the event at Diamante's with John Scully,
That's right.
One of the boxing reunions. And, through Neil Pallone and Tony Pallone crew, they have brought us together. And I'm real happy that you could take the time out of your day to come up here. And, boxing is a love for everybody. So I know that what you have going on here, but my question to you is, how did boxing find you? Like I ask everybody else,
Absolutely.
Boxing finds us in different ways. How did it find you, Charlie?
Well, first of all, thanks very much for having me tonight. I've got to tell you, boxing found me when I was probably about 7 or 8 years old. I was in Del Mar, New York, sitting in my grandpa Lacey's living room in front of one really large box Zenith black and white TV, watching all the kings from the 90s, watching Ali, Frazier, Foreman. And one fight a little bit later on that I really remember was in 1983, sitting in that same living room. Larry Holmes was fighting against Ronaldo Snipes, and I'm a Yonkers, New York guy, and Ronaldo Snipes was from Yonkers. And so my father made a point of telling me, we're rooting for Snipes, we're rooting for that guy. And let me tell you, when Ronaldo Snipes put Larry Holmes on the canvas, it was a very exciting moment in that household. And if I wasn't hooked before then, I was hooked then.
Yeah, that's a pretty interesting way to get hooked in boxing, because in those days, like I just did a podcast with Jerry Cooney, and we were talking about his fight with Larry Holmes, and at the time of the great fighters. And that's for me, watching boxing going back to ABC and, not having all these stream service and pay-per-view. And
Boom Boom Mancini.
Ray
I
Mancini.
remember watching him all the time.
It's funny you talk about, and Ray Mancini was one of my favorite fighters, but I actually got to meet Ray Mancini, all right? And
me too.
Last week was his birthday, right? So, real quick story. A friend of mine, his sister was dating one of Ray's guys. So he calls me up and he goes, listen, Ray's having his 21st birthday party at Studio 54. Do you want to go? Are you kidding me, right? I was in college at the time. Of course I want to go, right? Okay, we're going to put you on the list. You come down, right? So I was playing baseball at the time. I ended up breaking my leg that day in a game. And go to the hospital, put a cast on, blah, blah, blah. My dad's like, listen, I'm going. The girl I was dating at the time picked me up, drove me. So we go to Studio 54, and we go in. I'm on crutches, and it's packed, right? I sat next to his dad, Lenny, the whole night because I couldn't really walk around. I met him, and it was like, but the whole night was more talking to his dad. That was like more exciting. And I had saw Ray years later, and I said, you don't remember me, and you probably never would. And I told him, I said, I was at your birthday party. He looks at me like I'm some psycho, right? Like, hey, well, who the hell are you, right? Yeah, but I was at your 21st birthday party, and I know where. He goes, I said, it was at Studio 54. He goes, yeah. And then I said, I remember, because he had a big chain that said Boom Boom, right? At the time, there weren't. I said, but I tell you even one better. I sat next to your dad the whole night. Your dad had a red leisure suit on with his black glasses.
Wow.
And he looks at me, and I'm like, spoke to your dad the whole night about boxing. And, but Ray was one of my favorite fighters.
Did you get him to sign your cast?
Actually, I didn't. And, I was like, as a boxing guy, right? So, that's like you're sitting next to a guy, and his dad was so knowledgeable about the sport,
Sure.
and to get to listen to somebody tell you stories of training and everything else, and it was just amazing. So,
Wow.
but yeah, so, I mean, tell us a little bit about the Brown Sporting Good cards and how you got to find this, and really we'll get into what it's doing for boxing and what your goal is here.
Sure. For those who don't know, Brown's boxing cards were a set that were put out by a guy by the name of Johnny Brown out of Knob Noster, Missouri, from 1985 to 2002. He put out basically a set every year. They were smaller sets of 35, 40 cards usually. And for those who aren't familiar with boxing cards, there really aren't that many boxing card sets throughout the history of boxing. In the early 1900s, a few cigarette card companies put out boxing cards. In the 50s, Topps put out a set, a ringside set. But since, and then 1985 to 2002, Johnny Brown did them. In the early 90s, KAYO put out a set that was 250 cards, one and done. They were finished. All World put out one, 150 cards, right around the same time, one and done. And then there was another Ringside in 1996, one and done. And I always liked the Browns cards the most because they were a yearly set. And there's something about Johnny Brown. It was kind of an underdog kind of thing. It was, and supposedly it was a limited print of 2,000 or 2,500 sets. And it was supposedly having some sort of donation to boxers, some charitable influence to it. So fast forward to, well, again, 2002, they disappeared. There were none after that. And so fast forward to COVID, and I'm sitting at home, and I'm on eBay. I'm a card collector my whole life, in addition to being a boxing fan. And I see a Floyd Mayweather rookie card, which is 1997 Browns boxing, that used to go for about $100. I see it go for almost $10,000. And I said, holy smokes, this gives me an idea. So I start reaching out, trying to find, where is this Johnny Brown guy? Nobody can find Johnny Brown. I researched the P.O. box that used to be on the checklist cards. They said it hasn't been owned by or hasn't been rented by Johnny Brown for many years. So I reach out and I can't find him anywhere. So I decide, let me check with the trademark office, U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. And I went, and sure enough, he never trademarked it. So being a lawyer myself, I trademarked it. Then the next step was, what am I going to do with it? Am I going to try and make money on this, or am I going to try and carry on the spirit of what Johnny Brown did in the first place? So I decided to hook up with the New Jersey Boxing Hall of Fame. Henry Hascup, the president, is a good friend of mine. We were on another board together, the American Association for the Improvement of Boxing. And during that time that we were on the AAIB, we did college scholarships for amateur boxers with a golf outing and that sort of thing. So I said to myself, you know what? Why don't we put out a set every year, 40-card set? We'll sell them for $40 a set, and the money will go to fund college scholarships for amateur boxers. And the reason for that is, as I mentioned to you off the air,
right,
you can be the 1,000th best baseball, basketball, football, hockey player in the country, and you're getting a scholarship someplace. There's endless colleges that are going to offer you a scholarship. If you're an Olympic trials level boxer, Golden Gloves boxer, there are few and far between to try and find a school with a scholarship. And most of the schools that have boxing programs are really difficult to get into. It's the military service academies, Ohio State, Stanford, USC. So the opportunities are very limited.
Some of them are just club sports that are
right
now assimilating into a program. I know years ago, Marquette used to have an actual boxing team. It was one of the schools in Michigan. I don't know if it was Northeast. I don't want to, but it was a Michigan school that had an actual team back in the day. But to your point about boxing and sports and everything else, you made a good point. You know, fighting and boxing at every level, whether it's an amateur or professional, it's pretty tough. And to make any leverage as an amateur or even a professional is difficult. To get recognition, to get any type of funding or sponsorship, it just seems to go, like you said, you know, baseball, basketball, football, even some of the girl sports now, they're handing money out left and right.
Soccer, sure.
Soccer, I mean, I don't want to overlook anybody, but you know, fighters just seem to, and I say this, right? Think about this as a sport guy, right? Win 20 games in the major league as a pitcher, which most guys are not anymore because they're not even going to pitch that much, right?
Right.
Most teams will open up a checkbook for you. But there are fighters out there at a professional level that have 20 wins and aren't even making a living.
Yeah.
Or guys that won 30 or 40 fights as professionals and retire with nothing.
Well, that's part of the reason that, you know, especially I would, you know, this is anecdotal, just my thought, but I think, you know, boxers tend to be less likely to go to college, and probably more so than anybody because they don't have a union looking out for them. They don't have that sort of network that other sports have. It's really helpful for them to have some higher education, even if it's just you know, an associate's degree from community college that, you know, helps them concentrate on basic life skills when it comes to accounting and, you know, balancing the books.
Yeah, and you know, and the other thing to that too is it kind of makes sense like this, right? Because now you take a kid who maybe wants to go to school and is a fighter, but might choose whether financially he can or can't, but might choose not going to school because to follow the path of his boxing career. Now, if you can put a kid in college and he can box a little bit and maintain, like you said, getting an education while still boxing and seeing where boxing is going to take him, at least he has, you know, whether it's a community college degree or a 4-year degree, he has something to fall back on out of the sport.
Yeah, and it's not certainly unlike all those other sports where you can be a 230 hitter who happened to hit 28 home runs one year and got a big contract. When it comes to boxers, it's only the elite that are really making the big money, and you can be a top 20 boxer in all these weight divisions, and you need to have a side job or a main job because you can't spend all your time training because you're not making.
You don't have the means, and then
you're fighting 4 times a year at most.
If you're lucky,
yeah.
If you're lucky, right? And to your point, right? And you had mentioned this about unions and fighters and protection and stuff like that. You know, if you're a 230 lifetime hitter in the major leagues and you don't make the major leagues, say you do 10 years in the minor, you're getting a pension.
Yep.
You're getting some sort of benefits. You know, you can be a fighter for 10 years and walk away with there's no benefits really. There's nothing, like you said, you're out there working. There's no minimum set pay, requirement of, there's not a contract with some of these fighters, even though you might be under contract with a promotional company or a man, doesn't necessarily mean you're fighting enough and you're getting enough money to take care of your. It is a difficult road to be.
Yeah, and you and I both know dozens of former boxers who were at the top of the game. I mean, guys who I don't know if I really want to mention names, but
I agree with
guys who fought multi-million-dollar fights, but whether they had lousy management, whether they had their own personal vices, whatever it is, but guys who were household names, were on the cover of Sports Illustrated, were Olympic champions. Who you see them at some of these boxing dinners, and they appreciate whatever money they get for appearing at those dinners, or that you can throw them a few bucks for signing a card or two.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad.
Yeah, it is, and you know, it is unfortunate. I know you're pretty active, and you know, thank God for guys like John Scully who are putting stuff together.
The Iceman is
And
fantastic.
he is just, you know, for a guy who's, you know, a high level trainer and everything, I think he works harder on the outside trying to raise money than he actually, not to take away from his training, don't get me wrong,
Yeah.
but he is always working for these events to,
Yeah,
to put together.
I follow him on Facebook, and I actually was instant messaging him last week. I know he's going to be at the
Bobby
Ches event.
Yeah. Are you going?
I'm going to be going,
Yeah, so
and
am
I told him I'll bring a few cards for some of the guys who are going to be there and give them to him so that he can then raffle them
raffle
off.
them
or
off.
whatever.
Yeah,
So,
John is a great
yeah.
advocate for the sport.
He is.
So here you are, you find this company, you do all your due diligence. How does the idea now? Okay, how do you take the idea and put your spin on it? So when you go into this, now you own it.
Right.
You have all the trademark. How, because you do have a day job.
Well,
you're you know, you're like the rest of us. You're not just sitting home with boxing saying, "Oh, I'm working on boxing 24/7," right?
Right.
What was your idea when you took this over? Like, how did you pick fighters? What was the criteria?
Honestly, it became first of all, there are a lot of things you don't think about that you need to do, like setting up a PO box or some place to get mail back from, setting up the LLC, you know, getting the EIN and all the stuff that you need to do when you set that up, and then there's the actual who are we going to put on the cards? And then you realize, well, there are some legal things that you have to watch out for, such as you can't just, you know, I can't just grab, you know, Canelo and stick him on a card and sell Canelo cards without getting his permission.
Right.
So it became about a 2.5-year process for me to reach out to fighters directly, managers, promoters. And ultimately, I ended up getting some help from Mauricio Suleiman from the WBC, and a big shout out to him and Victor Silva at WBC. They were fantastic, very helpful to me. Jill Diamond, a lot of people helped out there. Melvina Lathan helped with the IBF, so I got some help there. They helped me get a couple people that I wouldn't have, bigger names that I was not able to get before. And then we had a couple helpful managers and promoters who saw the benefit to their fighters, because having your fighter on a boxing card that is out there for boxing fans and card collectors only helps spread your brand. So the managers that had that foresight, I think, were very happy with the product, and I know I spoke directly to a number of fighters who either didn't have managers or that I was just able to contact directly, and they loved the idea. And you know, it was really a great moment when I would have some of those fighters posting a picture with their card on Facebook or Instagram. And, you know, it's as a card geek, as somebody who collected cards, baseball, basketball, football, boxing cards as a kid, having my own card company, which you know is again purely for charitable purposes, but you know I'm in control of what gets on there, and I personally wrote the backs of all the cards, which has. A little that involved watching a lot of clips of some of the fighters that I was less familiar with, and commenting on particular fights they had. I put the last 3 bouts that they had and the results, and you know, some of their biographical information.
So there's a lot of work, and now
It was.
So when you started your research to find this company and started up, was the thought always it to be a charitable organization?
Yeah, I think because it had originally been a charitable project, at least that's how it was portrayed from word of mouth that I had heard about anyway. I felt that was the way to go. When the prior board that I had been on, the AAIB, we needed to look for a way to try and raise money, and so I brought it to the board. They actually said no, they didn't think it was going to fly, and to some extent they were right initially. So I then spoke to Henry Haskup, who had left that board and was still on the board of the New Jersey Boxing Hall of Fame. And the New Jersey Boxing Hall of Fame decided that they would be interested. So we joined together in partnership there. And so all the money we raise goes to them. And I have no control over how they spend it. They're going to distribute it. They're going to put together. We're not quite at the point where we have enough money to start funding the scholarships, but a few months down the road, hopefully we'll be able to do that. And I'm not part of the decision making on that. If they award it to somebody that I don't think deserves it, I have no say in it. So.
Right. And New Jersey has great history of boxing also.
Absolutely.
A lot of great fighters coming out of Jersey throughout the years, and great events, obviously, in Atlantic City.
Sure.
So do you foresee other states jumping onto this with you, or it being, what is your ultimate goal besides Jersey with this?
I think I don't know that it would. I'm open to any boxing charity that wants to get involved and help us in terms of recruiting fighters to be part of it. In terms of helping us sell them, if any boxing charity anywhere in the U.S. wants to market them, we'll work out a deal with them to give them a discounted price to sell them themselves. We'll sell them to them cheap. I mean, the point of all of this is to make money for scholarships, and we're not making money for scholarships if they're sitting in a warehouse or sitting in an office someplace. We want to get them out there to the public and let people enjoy the cards.
So tell us a little bit about the criteria: who goes on the card, what your process is to pick somebody, and you kind of walk through what you're putting on it. You're kind of wearing all the hats there. You're doing the information. You're chasing down fighters,
right?
And trying to get people to.
I have my college-age son, who's now the president of the company, because I prefer not to be involved in it myself. But
you gave him the title.
Yeah, but as far as the actual recruiting of the fighters, I'm still sending out emails to managers. I sent a couple out this evening, actually. I generally look at BoxRec and see who's in the BoxRec top 50 for a particular weight division. Some weight divisions are I'd say deeper than others. So generally top 50 BoxRec or top 15 of WBA, WBC, IBF, WBO. If they're in there, we'll take them. If we can't use them this year, we'll use them next year. Our first set, our big comeback set, came out at the end of November last year in 2024. And I'd love to get the next one out, the 2025 set, out by then. But it took me 2.5 years to put out that first set. It's going to be quite an undertaking to get this set done by the end of 2025. But that's my goal. And like I said, I did get some late help from the WBC. I'm hoping they'll be able to come through again. And again, any boxing promoters out there, any boxing organizations that want to help out, you can reach out to me at brownsboxingcards@gmail.com, or go to the website, which is brownscards.com.
Right. So your first set, 2024. How many cards are in this?
40 card set.
40 card set.
We have all current boxers except for, we had 2 referees. We had Sparkle Lee from New York and what's his name? Arthur McCanty Jr. from New York. We had one legend card, which was Tough Tony Pallone. Again, Neil Pallone's a good friend of mine, and Tough Tony Pallone. When I learned about his story, you know how
Great
fascinating
story.
that is.
Great
My
story.
God, guy who had was headlining Madison Square Garden in the
Done by
age
his
20.
21-year-old.
Yeah.
He was done with.
Yep.
He had over 50-something fight. Crazy amount
Amazing.
of fights.
Yeah.
And yeah. So basically, your card set is all current fighters. Who's your premier right now in the 2024?
2024, we've got Teofimo Lopez. We've got Danny Garcia. Danny retired I think he's going to come back personally, but he did retire just after we had put that together. Otto Wallen, who top heavyweight contender there. We've got a couple of guys who I think are gonna get places soon. Slawa Spomer, who just fought in Madison Square Garden, lost, but took on a tough up and coming guy there, whose name is escaping me at this very moment, but one of Top Rank's biggest guys. Who else do we have? We got Hussein Sinkara, who's a Turkish cruiserweight who was supposed to be fighting one of the guys from Australia, but then he got hurt. But he's a top contender. You got Joe DeGuardia has a couple of guys in our set. We have Joe Smith Jr.
Joe Smith, yeah. He's fighting.
Who's
I think he's fighting next week.
he was supposed to fight next week, but he got sick. I don't know whether he's
off the card?
on
Okay.
that card. But the guy who is on the card is Junior Yunin, who's middleweight, real good fighter. And then I deviated on a couple of guys who weren't really in the top, meeting my criteria I said before, but I think are up-and-coming guys. One is one of Joe DeGuardia's guys, Mickey Scala, who is from Arizona. He was originally signed by Floyd Mayweather's TMT. He started fighting when he was 15 in Tijuana, professionally, and he's now, I want to say he's about 22 now, real good-looking kid. Saw him fight at the Paramount in Huntington. Yeah. He's got some skills. So
we'll
we
have
think
to keep an eye out for him.
if we can find that guy who's not quite there yet, who 5 years from now or 4 years from now is going to be.
When? Joe must have snuck him in there. Somewhere. But
Joe is very helpful. Good man.
Yeah, he's Star Boxing. Shout out to them guys over
absolutely.
there. Joe's a mainstay in the New York area.
Yep.
Big advocate in boxing, and obviously still putting on shows and some great fighters over the year that he had. So how hard is it for you to get these guys? Because I'm sure the bigger the fighter, obviously you would love to have those guys, right? But with that comes a lot of red tape. And is it more the red tape or the financial end that these guys are looking at?
It's a little of both. I honestly, I'm shocked at some of the, forget about the real highest level guys, but I'm shocked at some of the managers who don't jump on the opportunity, because who wouldn't want to promote, it's a promotion for your guy. It's an opportunity to get your guy's name out to a group of people who might not otherwise be aware of him, whether they're boxing fans or they're just card collectors. Maybe the next time a pay-per-view comes up with your fighter's name on it, you'll get a few more buys.
You and I come out of the era of cards, right? I'm a card guy too. And, we come out of going to the grocery store and getting that card pack and opening it up. And, who wouldn't want to be on a card?
Yeah.
If I'm an athlete, I want to be on a card.
Yeah.
I have some friends who were Major League Baseball players and kids that I grew up with, and I have their card and we talk a little bit. I'm like, how cool is that, man? We were playing wiffle ball as kids and you got a card.
Yeah. Well, how many times are you at a boxing dinner and you see a guy, I'll give you a perfect example, a guy like Dennis Milton. Dennis Milton has a KO card from 1992. Every time I see Dennis Milton, I have a card for him to sign because I know how great Dennis Milton was. He was a hell of a fighter. But probably 3/4 of the room, unless they're actually real boxing people or boxers, they don't know who Dennis Milton,
Yeah,
Milton
he'll walk
is.
by them and they won't.
Nobody in the general public knows who Dennis Milton is. And, for a guy like that, I think it probably is a bit of an ego boost to say, hey, somebody remembers me. They know I was a good fighter. And I've been at many. Again, I'm a card geek. I'm a collector myself. My own personal collection. My wife wishes I would sell some of the stuff that I have. But for me, I'm always bothering poor Iran Barkley or Junior Jones or Vito Antuofermo, guys I see all the time. I'm bugging them to sign another card for me, just because that's the whole collecting thing.
Yeah, but
for
those
me.
guys, look, I haven't gone to as many events as you, but I know, I see, and I hear. I know Iran and Vito, and they're at Junior Jones. They're at a lot of these events, because the boxing community, right, is a diverse community. You know that,
Sure.
right? And it's a diverse community. It's different than any other professional sport. Like, because you've been around it, you have to live it. I think fighters are more approachable than any other professional athlete than you're ever.
Some of the nicest people
you're ever going to meet.
Absolutely.
And I've been fortunate and I've been blessed in this sport to be around a lot of different fighters and managers and in camps and, people that you think, oh man, I really didn't care for his personality and when you meet them, they're always. I haven't met a bad fighter that's not willing to do something for someone or help out or give advice or talk. And look, everything in time, and I'm not going up to guys when they're getting ready to walk in the ring or anything. And, there's a time to approach people when there's not.
Sure.
But most of these fighters are willing to do stuff as opposed to maybe some other professional athletes. And with boxing, you can get close to the game. You can't. In baseball, we can't walk on the field. You can't walk on the sidelines without a pass, and you can't be on the court or the locker room with these guys.
Right.
But in boxing, we're able to, depending on where you are in the sport and who you are, you can be around fighters, teams, managers, judges, guys, heads of the promotionals, and see what makes the sport tick a little bit like that.
Well, I agree with you. Some of the most salt of the earth athletes I've ever met have been boxers, and I'll tell you two quick stories. One, I was probably in my 20s. I had a friend. It was in 1991, too, somewhere around that time. I had a friend who was on a flight from Florida to LaGuardia, and this is back before cell phones, but we had beepers, and so my friend got had one friend beeped another friend saying, tell Charlie, Holyfield on my plane, come pick me up. So again, being the fight freak I am, I went and I found my KO card that had, it was the Battle of the Ages between Holyfield and Foreman card. And I brought it, picked her up at the airport, and there was Holyfield. So I went up and I shook his hand, asked him to sign the card and take a picture with me. And the look on his face, he had just lost to Riddick Bowe about 2 or 3 months earlier, and the look on his face, he didn't say it, but he almost said to me with his eyes, "Why would you want my autograph? I'm not the champ anymore." That was the look in his eyes, and I'll never forget it. And I could, to me, he was such a great warrior. His his fight with Michael Dokes, his fight with Dwight Muhammad Qawi,
his whole career of where he came from,
Olympic champion.
I mean, I don't want to say underrated, but
I think when people talk all-time greats, he's
got to
in
be
that
up
mix.
there because he came into the heavyweight division, and he's another guy that fought everybody.
Yeah.
And you know what? Yeah, I think you got to throw him in there.
Absolutely. He took on guys like Bowe and Lennox Lewis, who were way bigger than he was.
All day.
Yeah.
And then obviously the legendary fight with Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
And I was at the Connecticut Boxing Hall of Fame, and he spoke. And, You know, he made a great speech, and I really didn't get to talk to him too much because he was being pulled in 20 directions. But yeah, Holyfield was definitely
Very humble.
And-
And, they
and-
called him the humble warrior.
Yeah.
He absolutely was.
But
yeah.
you know what the thing is, I think, Charlie? Fighters, their legacies is like you said, they lose and they think that, the boxing world discards fighters after they lose. It's like, oh, you lost. Friggin' Yankees will lose a World Series, but next year there's going to be 3.5 million people in the goddamn stands watching them. They're not going to be.
I'll be there opening day.
Yeah, right? So the fighters, I think that feeling comes as like they're out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's unfortunately what happens when guys end up, like Iran Barkley went through a period of time there where he kind of fell off the radar and was, in some dire straits. One other, before I forget my other quick story was we had mentioned Boom Boom Mancini earlier, and I've met Boom Boom, very very nice guy Ray is, but I couldn't stand Livingstone Bramble
Nobody
because I
could.
was a
Nobody
Mancini
could.
fan.
And okay, you were a Mancini fan, but Bramble was just too brash and loud.
Right.
And
Absolute
you know what?
jerk.
He was nasty.
Yep.
And you know what? He was a good fighter, though, if you look back.
But I met him at a golf outing, at an AAIB golf outing probably 10 years ago. Nicest guy you could ever meet.
He's a top trainer now.
Absolutely nice guy.
He trains people. I don't know if he's back on the islands or if he's in Florida, but I've seen some. He's a pretty good trainer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you. I did not like
nobody
Livingstone
liked
Bramble. It was like,
But he was a super nice guy. When I met him, very nice. So
yeah. I mean, most, like you said, but most fighters. So now you're deep into this stuff, right? You're a working guy. You're an attorney. How are you managing all this stuff? Because I ask fighters the same way, right? We talked about this, right? Boxing is not something you do, whether you're doing what you do or you're training or you're however you're involved in boxing. It kind of sucks you in.
it does.
It's like, look, I'm a year and change in this podcast. Never thought I'd be sitting here doing this, and like it's like my mind is when I'm working and I have a full-time job too, and I train fighters, coach and whatnot. And it's like my mind is thinking, what's the next how what's the next story? Who's gonna come and who's gonna, who are we gonna get? How are we gonna fill time slots and everything else? And so how do you balance it? I know you have your son.
Well,
that is working on it.
It's a labor of love. It really is. It's half hobby, half charity, and I certainly believe in being a charitable person. It's funny, I mentioned my son. I'm wearing my Wake Forest shirt here. He's a freshman at Wake Forest, and Wake Forest's their slogan or their motto is pro humanitate, for humanity. And it's important to, I think all of us, have to play a role in giving back in some way or another.
Yeah, I agree. You know what? It's a little bit more of that. And that's the one good thing about if you look at people in the boxing world at every level, guys are always giving it back.
Yeah.
You always hear stories of people giving back somehow. But, so now you got to duplicate what you did in 2024.
On a much quicker turnaround, yeah. It's going to be tough. I've already got, I believe, I've got 5 people signed up right now, and I want to kind of stick with what we did last time, which is all current fighters with a couple of officials, or we in the current set right now in the 2024 set. Again, we had Mauricio Suleiman. We had Daryl Peoples from the IBF. We also had Steve Weisfeld, who's one of the top judges in boxing in the country, in the world. So it's basically 35 fighters and 5 non-fighters or participants or non-participants. And I like the idea of doing one legend because, like you said earlier, I don't remember whether we were actually on the air, but a lot of fighters in that time period between 2002 and today, a lot of great fighters didn't have boxing cards. So I like the idea of kind of putting somebody on who didn't have a card in the past and deserves it, has that sort of rich career that deserves it. I'll give you a perfect example. Someone who I think I can't understand how he didn't end up in the 90s when you had all those three sets. Aaron Superman Davis doesn't have a card. The guy was a welterweight champion.
Yeah.
How does he not have a card?
No, I know. And, Aaron, he's a local guy, good trainer. I know Aaron was a hell of a fighter.
Yeah.
Was a hell of a fighter.
And there are dozens of guys who had, really good careers, maybe weren't quite champion, but, fought 4 or 5 champions or fought 4 or 5.
Well, we go back and look, this is a conversation I was talking with Jerry Cooney about, right? And we're talking about boxing. The history of boxing is getting away from us. Okay, here's people our age who have been around the sport at all levels. We're getting older.
Yeah.
That torch is not getting passed, right? So from a trainer's aspect, we were talking about trainers. Some of the trainers are not, they're either retiring, they're older, whatever the case, they're out of the sport. It's not being regenerated like years ago.
Yeah.
The sport is not being, I don't want to say repurposed, but it's not evolving like other sports where you keep seeing more talent.
Yeah.
Look, we look at the coaches. I'll use the NFL, the young coaches, the analytics. It's a different level of coaching that's starting to come, and you see that being, groomed. Boxing, some of these trainers, Buddy McGirt, Freddie Roach, these guys, Robert Garcia. I don't want to miss anybody. There's so many good trainers out there, but what's going to happen when they're gone?
Yeah.
I know Freddie has groomed some people out of his gym that have been with him, but some of these other areas we're losing that. Plus, you're talking about going back to the 90s and early 2000s and late 80s. There's a whole history of boxing throughout the 30s through the 60s and the early 70s that the younger generation don't even know about.
Yeah.
I mean, we can sit here and talk fights. I'm sure we can go on about guys that fought, and people, we talk about Tony Pallone. People, hardcore boxing people will know who he is. Well,
I never knew about him until I met Neil.
I didn't know about him until
I can't believe that I wouldn't have known.
And honestly, I'm not going to lie either. I didn't. But when I started to do the history before I met Neil, and I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah.
And I talk to people, I'm like, look at his box rec.
Yeah.
Look at what he did. And I know a lot of these people don't know who he fought, but look at the amount of times he fought. And that's only one guy like that.
Yeah.
There were numerous guys
Absolutely.
like that. And, to what you're saying is, how do we preserve that history?
Well, I'm glad you used the word history because that helped remind me. I was a history major in college, and I embrace that sort of. I embrace history. I embrace the telling of history and the reading of history. And one of the things that I personally benefited from in terms of my boxing knowledge. One of the founders of the AAIB, it was founded, if you don't know, in 67 or 68, I believe, by a guy by the name of Steve Acunto from Mount Vernon, New York.
I know Steve Acunto.
And Rocky Marciano, just before Rocky died. And Steve, when he died about 6-7 years ago, I guess now, he lived in Mount Vernon, and he had an entire office full of books on boxing. And I ended up inheriting a lot of those books, and I read them cover to cover. And I learned about guys that I didn't really know about that Steve used to talk about and would kind of go in one ear and out the other. But, some of these guys that fought in the 20s and the teens, the Stanley Ketchels and the, just it blows your mind. Or a guy like Willie Pep. If you ever read his biography, my God, what he went through to with his plane accident and then coming back after his broken back and all that kind of stuff. It's just
we can go.
astounding.
Even the ones that movies go after James Braddock. Look what he went through, and you know what? You kind of touched on something. What people don't realize, it's a little different today. Maybe not. Maybe not. Boxing is history. We go back to boxing matches where countries were fighting. We were fighting against countries.
Yeah.
At different times.
Louis Schmeling.
Yeah. World War I, World War II. Color came into play.
Yeah.
Promoters at different points, countries. Ali fighting in Manila and Zaire. Going back to when I was a kid. Wide world of sports. You watching the USA fight Cuba or Russia or China was just like you weren't just a boxing fan. You were rooting for your country at that point.
I don't know about you, but if I'm watching a couple of fighters that I don't normally care about, that I'm not invested in, but one's an American and the other one's from anywhere else, I'm rooting for the American. I don't care if he's black, white, yellow, green, blue.
Of course.
It doesn't matter. He's the American. I'm rooting for the American. And that's just how I am and how I've always been.
Listen, that's the way we were raised. And, we can even go to modern day. Look what Usyk was fighting for.
Sure.
People don't realize. People say, okay, and I said this as someone, I said, listen, there's a couple of things you guys got to take into consideration, whether Usyk's a good fighter, whether you think he's going to. That man's fighting for a purpose. When you have a man fighting for a purpose, he's got a whole country behind him. He's not just carrying he's carrying his country.
Yeah.
And he has a purpose. I said, that's a dangerous man. I said, you cannot overlook him. And I don't like his style. I give him a lot of credit. He's not my type of fighter. I mean, he beat Tyson, and I thought Tyson was going to beat him.
Yeah,
but
I did too. Yeah.
I had actually had somebody I knew who was in Fury's camp for that whole fight, and I was like, no. And then what happened. But not to take anything away from him, but
give him all the credit in the world, because that country either that carries you to greatness, or it crushes you beneath it because you can't handle it. And he had the personality to handle it and the drive.
And you know what? You see now the Cuban fighters coming over, their purpose to make better lives and everything else, and we can go on. And I think that's what kind of makes boxing so great. And what you're doing is kind of time stamping it.
Yeah.
It's putting it out there like, look, in 20 years from now, somebody's going to have a card. Somebody's going to be sitting here saying, oh, I got that first set from 2024, and look at these guys. And there might be 5 guys in there that are world champions that, later on in their careers.
From your lips to God's ears.
So, I mean, I think it's a great idea. I love the aspect of, and I want to ask your opinion on this, because we talked a little bit, not much at that event. How does boxing become something where to raise money, not only for kids going to college, but fighters that have had careers that have had health issues or fallen on tough times, or just, there's a lot of people out there that take advantage of fighters. There's a lot of good people also, but, what are your thoughts on that, since you're working on an aspect that's, I know, raising and putting college scholarships, which is great.
Yeah.
Do you see something bigger?
I think so many people have wanted that for the longest time. I thought, again, back as a historian, I thought maybe John McCain, when he was a senator, was going to, try and push for some sort of national, either governing body that would unify everything within the U.S. To certain standards, or possibly get into some sort of pension system or something for boxers. It's difficult because you've got high level stuff and you've got club shows. and I'm not sure how it all gets done. Listen, President Trump is certainly a boxing guy. Maybe it's something that he might take on. No, if anybody could do it with his boxing knowledge and background, maybe he's the guy. Who knows?
Yeah. So, what can we expect from you now working on this? And why don't you show us a little bit about what
Sure.
you got going on
just
there,
move this a moment.
so everybody can kind of see what you're putting together. And
All right, so we'll do a little show and tell here. First this is hopefully I can.
so real quick, I see. I can't read the name. Who's the female fighter?
That's Sharetta Metcalf, the IBF
Okay.
bantamweight champion right now.
So we talked about fighters, but we didn't tap into the women, and we don't want to overlook that.
Absolutely.
So you are putting women fighters in
Absolutely.
also.
We
Okay.
we have Sharetta Metcalf. We have Heather Hardy, who is just retired, unfortunately.
Yep.
We have Samantha Worthington.
Yep.
And let's see who else we've got. We've got who else we have? I know we have Jessica Neri Plata, who's two-belt champion right now. And
Is that Hector Camacho in the middle there?
no, that's
I look like the hairdo. I can't. Like I said, I can't.
Renee Calixto Bibiano,
Okay.
Mexican fighter. And we have Kim Clavel, who just won a fight.
Yeah, from Canada.
She was belt
She was a
holder,
champion.
and I think she was light flyweight. Now she's up to flyweight, and she's the number one.
The black and white cards.
Black and white cards are the next. These are the old Browns boxing cards. See,
Okay.
I modeled ours kind of after the original 1985 set, which is here.
And that set was black and white. That whole set. Or was it a color
Yeah,
set also?
I think it was all black and white, yeah. And you got just a couple of the legends that had their rookie card. You got Matthew Saad Muhammad here. You got, who else do we have here? We got James Buddy McGirt, rookie card.
Yeah.
Who else do we have here? That's Jesse Ferguson, Wilfred Scipion, Tony Thornton. Remember him, the punching postman from New Jersey? I loved watching. He was on USA Fights all the time. Mustafa Hamsho,
Yep. Another Jersey
Prince
guy.
Charles Williams, Kevin Howard. Remember he fought Sugar Ray Leonard? Okay, so then this is the one of the biggest and best sets. This is the 1986 set, which has James Broad. Where are the big guys? The big guys are coming here. Hang on just a moment here. Frank Tate, and now the big guys. Evander Holyfield. So
Right.
that's his first card. Mark Breland.
Yeah, I could see
Meldrick
Mark.
Taylor.
That's big.
Tyrell Biggs.
Yeah.
Pernell Whitaker. I mean, you don't get bigger than that.
No.
So that whole 84 Olympic team. Then this next set from 86, 87, Randy Gordon, the commissioner from New York, who's, congratulations, Randy, heading into the International Boxing Hall of Fame.
Yesterday was his birthday or today?
In June.
Yeah.
Let's see here. Johnny Bumpus, remember him?
Yeah, I remember Johnny Bumpus.
James Bone Crusher Smith. Who else is... Joey Gamache.
Great trainer right now. Great fighter. Yeah.
Let's see here. There aren't too many more big ones here. These two sets kind of stink. I'm going to go ahead to this really good set. This is 1990, where you've got Iran Barkley, Riddick Bowe. Those are their rookie cards.
Two big names right there.
Mark Breland was back in that one. Glenwood Brown, Simon Brown, Macho Camacho, Orlando Canizales, Michael Carbajal. I mean, these are huge names. Al Ice Cole, Donald Curry.
Great page right there.
Doug the Cobra DeWitt, back to Yonkers.
Yonkers guy.
Let's see here. Todd Foster, the schoolboy Todd Foster. Let's see. Calvin Grove, Greg Haugen, Virgil Hill, Davey Hilton, Lloyd Hunnigan, Tyrone the Harlem Butcher Jackson, one of the best nicknames in all of boxing. Kevin Kelly, Roger Mayweather, Ray Mercer, Merciless Ray Mercer.
Ray Mercer.
This was the only large set. This was I think 75 cards. Charles the Natural Murray, Michael Second to None, Vinny Pazienza.
Yep, another guy getting inducted this year in the Hall of Fame.
Let's see here. So now moving on here, we got some repeats here. Lonnie Bradley, Roberto Duran. That's not his true rookie card. His true rookie card was from 1973, I believe. Chris Eubank.
Wow.
Arturo Gatti. Junior Jones. All right, let me fast forward to, I'll go quickly to the biggest card, which is the Floyd Mayweather rookie card, which right now is one of the most counterfeited cards out there. Like I said, it went from being a $100 card to being a $10,000 card overnight, and so a lot of people started copying it. This is one of the original ones, so this is my personal collection here, and so I have a bunch of others that I've gotten some of those cards signed and so forth. But yeah, so that's our set. The set, as we're selling it, we sell it only as a set. We don't sell them in packs or individual cards. So it comes in a hard plastic case with a tamper-proof seal. So if you go into it, it's unsealed. But
tell us where we can find you and where they can purchase this.
Again, it's the website is www.brownscards.com. And you can do PayPal through that, and it goes everything goes straight to the New Jersey Boxing Hall of Fame, goes right into their account, doesn't go through my account or anything like that.
Right.
And you can also get it on eBay. A friend of mine is a consigner on eBay, and he sells lots of memorabilia. He's my memorabilia guy. I end up, I buy stuff from him weekly, and so he has 1,000 sets ready to go, and so they're available both on eBay and directly from the website. And if you have anybody who's in touch with the New Jersey Boxing Hall of Fame, Henry Hascup can get them to you.
And all the proceeds going to College Scholarship Fund. You guys are working that out, that you're almost there. Yep. Any other fundraisers you're doing for this besides the Browns for the College Scholarship Fund?
Well, just in terms of where you might be able to see the Browns, I'm going to be my son and I are going to go to the International Boxing Hall of Fame induction weekend. They have a show up, like a memorabilia card show type thing up there. So we'll be up there with them. They'll be available then. If hopefully we'll get some good exposure for that.
And I mean, look, for most of you people, the local, Charlie's at a lot of local shows, at a lot of local events out there.
That's right. I'll be at the
Russo's on the Bay.
Russo's on the Bay for the 23rd.
And then also, look, we want to shout out the event for Bobby Ches.
Absolutely.
On March 31st. It's in Nutley, New Jersey. The particulars are on Facebook. You can go to John Iceman Scully's site, and he'll have the particulars of who's going to be there. And there is a Venmo. I don't know if there's a PayPal for donations out for Bob, who's struggling with some health issues right now. But if you're a boxing guy, I know I spoke to Jerry Cooney. He's going to be there. I'm not sure who else is going to be there at that point, but I know Jerry is. So, it's a great event to get out there.
I believe Michael Spinks will be there.
I saw Michael.
They had said Larry Holmes. I'm not certain whether he's still going. But
I'm not sure on that. I'll talk to you off the air of what I heard on that. But you know what, Charlie, it was great for you to come up here.
Thanks for having me.
And, look, it's a good cause. Like we talked about earlier, Charlie talked about giving back. But, to us, boxing is a little more meaningful than maybe most people. And to see these guys out there that were, the greats of their time, and everybody has struggles in their life that they fall upon, but boxing is not as protected as the other major league sports out there, and professional sports. So if we can get people to kind of recognize that these guys put it all out there for 20 fights, 10 fights, 30 fights, 40, 50, and some of them didn't make a great living out of it, but the love of the sport kept them going. And anything that can be give back is definitely appreciated. So please go to Charlie's site. If you're a card guy, if you're not a card guy, maybe you have a son or a grandson, keep the sport going, because it's pretty soon the elder statesmen like us are just kind of going off into the sunset. So it's the next generation we want to pass this to, and keep boxing great. So
absolutely,
I really appreciate you coming up here, Charlie. We'd love to have you on again. For everybody else, I appreciate everybody subscribing to us. My sponsor, farmerstrength.com. Check us out there. I appreciate my guys at Creative Evolution for all they do to video this. Matt and Ian, appreciate you guys. And, from Coach Dave, we'll see you in the next round. Train hard and train smart.